Hi everyone and welcome back to Nothing Typical. If you're new here, my name's Kylie Grace, and on this podcast I talk about my experiences being a neurodivergent girly in her 20s and all of the things that come along with that. It has been such a long time since I've actually sat down and recorded an episode. I made a few recordings about a month ago, and both of those are still being edited right now because I don't know. If, starting something new, I feel like it's very normal to be filled with a bunch of doubts, but it's really annoying how much I feel that way about this sometimes when I know how much fun it's been. I just really want to bring value to people's lives with this, and I quite frankly don't know if I'm doing that, but hopefully that's the case. So with that being said, thank you so much if you're listening. And yeah, today I wanted to kind of give a life update and discuss executive dysfunction and how that's been playing a role into my life recently quite more so than normal, and kind of advice that I have found helpful for that because I know it's such a struggle. So if you're also going through that, hopefully this can help you as well. So full transparency, my summer is almost over. It's August 3rd, 4th right now, actually. I usually take a bit to edit this, so we'll see when it goes up. But I go back to school on August 8th for training for my job, and because of that, my summer, in a way, feels like it's coming to a close very soon, even though obviously it's still going to be hot and summer weather while I'm there, and I'm also very excited for it. So it's not like necessarily a negative. It just means that, my free time is coming to an end, which is okay. And yeah. But with that, my point of saying that is I have been in a really weird limbo state over the past few weeks of feeling kind of stuck almost, because I think I get like this when I know that there's a big transition coming up. I experience more executive dysfunction, and I find it really hard to continue with routines that I have, and everything just kind of goes out the window, regardless of how excited I may be for a change, which is really frustrating because in an ideal world, I would love to, be going to bed at a good time and doing all of my routines and things that I hope to be doing leading up to training, so that when I actually am back, it's more natural to flow back into waking up super early and, having a busy day. But the reality is very different, and I know that that's okay because sometimes with neurodivergence, it's just impractical, like point blank. And that's really the case with how I've been feeling. I have been really struggling to do things that I plan to do, and that definitely took a hit in my confidence, and I kind of just stopped doing a lot of things that I normally had been doing and enjoyed doing, like editing this podcast and going to Pilates, going to the gym. And it can be discouraging sometimes because I feel like I want consistency with my routines and knowing that I can do things, but the reality, it's not that simple, especially for me, and I want to learn how to just accept that because I know that beating myself up about it is not gonna help anything. A few weeks ago, I made an episode that I never actually finished posting, and I might actually insert it into this episode, I'm not really sure yet, but in that, I stated a few things that I wanted to do before the summer ended, and they were different routines and things that I know would just make myself feel good that I had been neglecting. And this is kind of an unexpected early update on that episode alongside the discussion about about executive dysfunction. So in this episode, I talked about how I wanted to wake up earlier, go to bed earlier as well, continue moving my body intentionally because I have been really good at that over this summer pretty much, which has been really nice, but making sure I get outside and reading before bed and meditating every day. And a few of those things I definitely got better at. I have been reading before bed, but to the point where I stay up way too late because my book is really good, and I unfortunately then also don't wake up as early as I had planned because I'm exhausted from how late I've stayed up. So, definitely a big miss with that. But also too, I said in that episode that life is unpredictable and you can't really perfectly predict what you're gonna have happen. And little did I know, I was super on the nose with that because I ended up going to the hospital twice in the past few weeks. It's not an uncommon thing for me. I have suspected endometriosis, and I definitely want to talk about that in a future episode, but that's going to take a lot of thought and a lot of notes and preparation because there's a lot of things I want to say about that. So for now, Google it if you want, I guess, but it takes a really big toll, and it means when I'm basically triggered in a way and inflamed, it means more painful attacks and, really scary things where I need to make sure I'm actually physically okay, because a healthy average person experiencing my symptoms would not think that they're okay. And it's a lot because I'll go to the ER and worry that something's wrong this time because it always could be wrong. And I never really find out what's going on, but that's what I'll say about that for now. So I went to the hospital twice, and that, needless to say, absolutely destroyed my sleep schedule for multiple weeks because the first time I woke up in pain and went at 4 a.m, and then the next time I actually didn't go to the hospital specifically for endometriosis, but because of being in the hospital overnight, or not overnight, but waiting to see someone for 8 hours and staying up, I did not get any sleep, and that flared up my endometriosis and gave me an attack, ironically enough. So the weeks after that, and this happened like in less than a week from one another, so the week or two after that was really difficult to try and, regroup myself and figure out how to get back into routines and things like that. And I honestly really just couldn't get there, and it felt like I was failing myself, which was really annoying because I know I need to be not as hard on myself, but I'm still learning that lesson. So, I kept hoping that I would figure it out. And at first I knew I needed to rest, so it was a lot easier to kind of source this unable to do everything on needing to rest and also being more okay with it. But then as it went on, it started to turn into executive dysfunction and feel less like I'm doing this on purpose and more so like it feels impossible to do anything. And if you're familiar with executive dysfunction, it is really difficult. And basically, it just leaves you thinking about everything you want to do for sometimes hours at a time without being able to move. I spent multiple times, especially in my first year at university, staring at my dorm room wall, not even on my phone. Most of the time, I would go on and off because I would go off my phone, be like, okay, time to do stuff. And I would stare at my wall for another hour before I actually got myself up to make dinner or start a assignment that was due. And it can be really debilitating and really frustrating. And so I was experiencing that and honestly feeling just really annoyed with myself. And I want to say, if you are experiencing that right now, I am sending you so much strength and support because I know how insanely difficult it is to get out of that state, and also to how isolating it can feel, because I feel like a lot of times people around me don't necessarily understand because they haven't experienced it themselves, so they don't really get why it's such a big deal and why it feels so truly impossible to just do the thing. And just know that as much as I've said that, I felt bad to myself about it, and it's hard not to be hard on yourself, do know that at the end of the day, truly you're worth being supported and loved and appreciated by others, but also from yourself, and having those feelings toward yourself and knowing that they're genuinely true, no matter what state of functioning and what place your neurodivergence is bringing you, whether it be you have a good handle on things in that moment and feel good, or feel like you're back in this executive rut like I did. All of it is valid, and it can come and go, and it's never one perfect solution, but it's all valid, and I do want to talk about a thing that helped me. And I know that this is not a perfect solution. I just want to start off by saying, because first of all, you have to have the privilege and ability to have a very flexible schedule, but it doesn't necessarily need that. It just is very helpful if you have those things. But I did this too when I had a very rigid schedule and was in high school and had to wake up super early. And I still used this, and it still was helpful to some degree. So if this can be helpful to you, that's amazing. I find it really funny. I always segue what I'm about to talk about before I even give any context. Like, even in my personal life, I'll give this huge subtext and then I go into what I was saying, and before I go into it, the person is so confused who's talking with me, and I just find that really funny because I just did that. But let's get into it. So what I found to help me in this time with struggling to get up and do anything, and also too, I know this can sound like depression, but there is a difference between executive dysfunction and depression, but I'm not a mental health expert, so I'm just going to talk about my experience. So basically, when I was experiencing the worst and the start of this slump, I knew I needed something to just kick me into gear and get me over this hurdle where I started feeling like I can't do these things. Because for me, it at first starts with, I don't have the energy, I can't do this. And then it goes into the things that becomes executive dysfunction for me, which is I don't know what to do first, and I don't know how to decide what to do first, and I don't know what it's gonna end up looking like. And it just, all of the factors gets me so overwhelmed, and I feel like it's so much bigger than it might necessarily be. And it's a lot. And when I'm in this moment, I really need a space to prove to myself that I can do any of the things that I've been thinking in my head that I need to do, but in a way that is attainable and feels realistic with my current functioning state. And so basically, this is the tip. It's okay to do it wrong. And I say wrong in quotations because that's, for a lot of things, there's not really a right or wrong way, but there's a perceived correct way to do things, but it's okay to do things wrong. Also, I just want to add a quick little disclaimer, this statement. I am not condoning anything illegal, morally wrong, ethically wrong, none of those things. This is purely discussing habits and routines and rejecting the idea that there's a specific quote-unquote right way that you have to do something, like starting a new healthy habit, for example, in order for it to be done correctly and for you to deserve credit and mark that as progress. This is merely overcoming executive dysfunction and talking about things like that. This does not relate to anything morally, ethically, legally wrong. I realized that getting myself up and showering, even if it was at 2 a.m. after I had been doom scrolling or after I had maybe been reading, but, during this slump, it was definitely not reading. It was just doom scrolling. When it's midnight, 2 a.m., whatever it might be, and going for a shower at that ridiculous hour, yeah, it's impractical, but being neurodivergent can be super impractical sometimes, which I know is annoying, but truly, at least for me, that's my reality, is it is super impractical sometimes. And getting myself up and going and showering, even if it's at the most what seems like absurd and impractical time, because my hair is going to be wet when I'm going to bed, or I'm going to have to stay up an extra while so that my hair can dry, or whatever it might be, to do the thing the second you think of it, before you can think logically and try and figure out, I have to do this, but I can't do that, but if I do this, then that won't work, and this is not going to work. And it's, for me, really helpful because it proves to myself that I can do the thing. And once I've done that thing, quote unquote, wrong, it becomes a lot easier for me to do other things that I've been thinking in my head, because it seems a little less daunting and a little less overwhelming. And it kind of becomes this domino effect almost, where you push one